All right. Let me first just acknowledge yeah, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I'm trying out a new look. According to Twitter, it was mixed reviews. According to my family, it looks good. I have no idea. It really depends on the comment section of this video whether I ever wear this again. So, up to you guys. I like the look on other people, don't know if it looks good on me. Suppose we'll find out. But yeah, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and drop a like on this video. With that out of the way, today's video is originally planning on making a video focusing on the New Orleans Pelicans because when I was talking in the locker room the other day, a guy made the point that the Pelicans have been kind of disappointing this year, and I wanted to put a spotlight on them. But that was rudely interrupted by Kevin Porter Jr. having the youngest 50-10 game in NBA history. By that I mean he passed LeBron James for the youngest player ever to have a 50-point, 10-assist game, with LeBron having done it at age 23 and him having done it at age 20. So Kevin Porter Jr. is absolutely the story of the day. The Rockets beat the Bucks, where Giannis played a grand total of 46 seconds because he got an ankle sprain at the very start of this game. And Kevin, it really was an effort throughout the whole game. Of course, he heated up later, but like from the very start, you could tell he was going to have a good game. I think yesterday or a day before, on Tuesday, I did a post-game recap where I talked about a Rockets game, and Kevin had an abysmal game. That was one of the worst games I've seen from him. He had a good playmaking game, but his shots just were not going in. I'm pretty sure he made his first field goal like within the last 4 minutes of the game. This game, though, 50 points, 11 assists, 16 for 26 from the field, 9 for 15 from three, and it was from three-point range that he really was doing his damage. I said in that video covering the Rockets that Kevin has issues with his shooting. Ever since joining the Rockets, he's about a 30% three-point shooter, although I'm sure that number has gone up a little bit after this game as he shoots 60% after making 9 of them. But this game is definitely not the case. He had a lot of step backs. A lot of these were pull up and contested threes that he was taking with little hesitation. He doesn't have an issue with confidence. That's definitely not an issue with Kevin Porter as a shooter. He just was bombing away, and this game they were dropping, and I think that's the big reason why he had the game that he did. His other scoring just came from his typical stuff. Couple of mid-range pull-ups, couple of floaters, mostly attacking in the pick and roll, getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line. He got 11 free throws. He's a very good pick and roll playmaker. I've made that point before, and really, if you watch this game, especially if you're a Rockets fan, you could be excused for seeing a little bit of James Harden in this game. I mean, a 50-11 game on 60% shooting and hitting 9 threes, that's a very James Harden stat line, and add on to it that it's a left-handed shooting guard taking a bunch of step-back threes. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, although he does a lot more of his damage in the pick and roll, where while James Harden did that earlier in his career, over the past few years in Houston, the pick and roll usage gradually declined. That's why they traded Clint Capella on top of other reasons. So that's not a one-to-one comparison, but there's definitely some stuff there. And I don't think Kevin's going to be as good as James Harden because, well, that's a very high bar. But I think he can be an all-star, a perennial all-star even, and the Rockets absolutely got a steal because they traded a second-round pick for this dude. Of course, he had off-court issues, and I believe the reason the Cavs traded him was some locker room dispute. But honestly, when I look at that, I'm like, dude, trade everyone on this roster outside of Darius Garland and Colin Sexton to keep Kevin Porter. And even if you had to trade Colin Sexton, honestly, I mean, Colin's better right now, but Kevin, I think, will be better even by next year or a year after. Darius Garland, very good. So yeah, that's Kevin Porter from this game. For this game in general, Christian Wood had 30 points. He was a beneficiary of a lot of those Kevin Porter assists, couple of dump down passes. He had a very nice dunk at the start of the game. He's also a conflicting shooter for me. This game, he went 6 for 10, which is a very good game. Him getting up 10 threes in general, he averages like 4.5 attempts, so that's a lot for him. And he hit 6 of them. But he also had one that he airballed, and like he's so hit. I don't know if I want to use the phrase he's hit or miss. Like all jump shots are hit or miss, but he'll have games and he'll have shots and I'm like, oh, that looks so smooth. That's definitely dropping. And then ones that I'm like, yeah, I can tell that's not going in as soon as you take it. He had a couple of those for his misses, and he had one that was a transition. I think Kevin was the one that set him up. It might not have been. He got set up very well. And he splashed it like it was nothing, and it was a big momentum play as well. So I don't know with him. Kelly Olynyk, once again, a very good game. He is just finding ways to score, especially in the paint. Like it's some, like, I didn't realize he had this much touch at the basket and a lot of off-ball ability, creating shots in the paint. Really, you think of him more as a shooter, but I mean, this game he shot 17 times and only 5 of those shots were threes. The other ones are pretty much exclusively in the paint. I also want to shout out both DJ Wilson and Jayshawn Tate. Now, Jayshawn's game in this one wasn't outstanding in comparison to the game he had on Tuesday, where I completely forgot to mention him, and it really annoyed me once I realized that after the fact. He had a putback dunk. He had a lot of very nice drives. He had a three-pointer that I did not think he was going to hit, but he sunk it casually. This game, 2 for 3. He's a pretty good defensive player. He's definitely going to be a very good, at least starting caliber player. Not going to project any star type stuff with him, at least not yet, but he's a relatively big guy. I'm not sure what his actual height is, but he's very well built. He's a good rebounder, a very good hustle player, and I think he can be quite good. And in this game, the Rockets score 143 points. Of course, a 50-11 game from one of your starters is going to boost that as well. But really, this team can score in droves at times when they have the chemistry going. It's really just they can't play defense worth shit. I also, before I move on to that defense and the Buck side of things, I'm talking about them a lot, but I don't care. I want to talk about DJ Wilson. Very nice putback dunk in this one, a couple of threes, a couple of attacking off of the dribble. He also had a relatively good game on Tuesday, I believe, as well. DJ is a guy who I actually thought had a good amount of potential, but he never really got much opportunity with Milwaukee, so I'm glad to see him get opportunity in Houston, and, you know, he's been relatively inconsistent because this is the first real playing time of his career, but I think he can be something. Moving on to Milwaukee, this was obviously basically without Giannis outside of the first game, outside of the first minute, rather. This was done as you'd expect from Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, but you also got a lot of it from Bryn Forbes, who went 6 for 10 from 3, 11 for 17 overall, hit a couple of falling mid-range shots, and really he kind of reminds me of Marco Bellinelli, which might seem like a weird comparison, but he and Marco both have this thing where I'm watching them. Marco doesn't play in the NBA anymore, but I'm like, dude, you are a good shooter, but calm down. Bryn Forbes takes a lot of you're good, but chill out shots. You're a good shooter, but chill out shots. He's not that great overall. But today, those why are you taking that? I understand you're a good shooter, but not that good shots. Those were all going in today. So ended up working out for him, especially when they needed that scoring punch. Bobby Portis with a double-double off of the bench. Talk about him every time I talk about the Bucks. Also, Brook Lopez had some pretty key baskets at certain times in this one, so shout out to him for that. As for how this game ended up going in Houston's favor, it really was Kevin, who was already playing well, heated up even more in the fourth quarter and kind of sunk the Bucks. The Bucks actually had a sizable lead at one point, but the Rockets pushed back. I have talked about this game enough as it is, so I'm going to move on. But this game really surprised me. It ended up pulling my attention away from OKC versus New Orleans because I was not paying much attention to this game because the first half, the Rockets game was on, and I was going to watch the end of that game with Kevin doing what he was doing. So OKC, no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's obviously going to hurt you. So for this game, really, I'm just watching the other players because OKC has a good amount of players that I think can be pretty good NBA players to even really good. A good game from Theo Maldon, Lou Dort, 17. Lou Dort is either Andre Roberson or Ray Allen from 3. It's either one. There's no in between for Lou Dort. He was 4 for 8 in this one. He hit 1-3 late in the game that was just a very impressive shot that you only really see really good shooters take, and he took it with no hesitation. Moses Brown, 18 rebounds. They signed him, I believe, out of just free agency. He might have been in the G League, but like he's just been awesome ever since he's got an opportunity. Darius Bazley is a very kind of disappointing player to me for this year. I'm not going to give him too much slack because he's young, but I was expecting like 17 points per game on relatively decent efficiency from him this year. I was very high on Bazley going into this season, especially because of what he did for OKC in the bubble. If you were not aware, he averaged like what I said, like 15 points per game on very good efficiency, especially like 50% shooting from three. Has not done that this season. He's shooting like 30% from three this year. I still think he has it ism, but I think he has it ism. I still think he has it in him, but very inconsistent for him this year. Ty Jerome was okay in this one. I just think of Ty Jerome because he had a very good game the other day. And then Isaiah Roby is another guy. He does not always stand out, but sometimes he makes nice plays. This one he had a very good putback dunk, and he hit some three-pointers, 13 and 9 off of the bench, and 15 minutes is very nice. And then for the Pelican side of things, it was very standard. Zion doing Zion things, Ingram doing Ingram things, Lonzo doing Lonzo things. Off of the bench, there was James Johnson, who was pretty all right, although I don't love it when he plays next to Zion because his shooting is pretty suspect. But that was about it on the Pelican side of things. Obviously, they won this one. OKC without Shea is just not going to win most games, although I believe they just beat Boston, but we don't need to say that because Boston's been doing good lately, so we'll be nice to them. And then finally, Pacers versus Nets. I'm going to go through this one quickly because I spent so much time talking about the Rockets. I don't want this video to drag on for too long. Kevin Durant with the most casual 42 points I've ever seen. Really, that's not true. Kevin Durant just does this all the fucking time. He has 40, and it's like he didn't even look like he was trying. Kevin Durant is the number one leader of making basketball look so much easier than it is. And ironically, his teammate Kyrie Irving is probably number one in making basketball look impossible. So, yeah, Kevin Durant, he also had 10 assists. He had a lot of good passes in this one, specifically to, I hope I say this right, Elijah Johnson. He was in, I believe, the James Harden deal. I think that's how he got there from Indiana, but he could have also just been released. I just know that he was a former Pacer, and he's playing the Pacers in this one. A 20-20 game off of the bench. Very good rebounds from him. A lot of dump-off passes from Kevin Durant. He got fouled a good amount in the paint. So yeah, that was just a great game. Mike James, who I talked about last time I talked about the Nets, 7 assists off of the bench in this one. What I find interesting about Mike, he did shoot 7 shots this time, but in the game, the last one I talked about where he played pretty well, he was really hesitant to take a lot of shots, which I find interesting because when he was in Phoenix, he was chucking those shots. So I guess he's like trying to play more conservative just to hopefully maintain a roster spot rather than maybe I have a better stat line, but I'm clearly not that efficient, so no team really wants me. Maybe if I chill out a little bit, be more of a playmaker with 7 assists in this one, 5 assists the other day. He's a little bit more opportunity and more chance for him on an NBA roster, and maybe those shots come when he proves himself to be a little bit more reliable. On the Pacer side of things, Karis LeVert was clearly going for a revenge game here. He had 36 points, although I did tweet that, and some guy was like, bro, trading him might have saved his life, which is... So I don't know he has actually that much reason for revenge because he had the blood clot thing that got caught in the... I mean, that probably would have been found eventually regardless. I think it was a blood clot thing or something else. I'm actually not 100%. But yeah, he had 36 in this one. He started the game 3 for 3 from 3, and he has been pretty rough from 3 with the Pacers, at least last I checked. So that was kind of a sign to me that he was feeling it. A couple of pull-up mid-range shots, drive to the basket. He had one very, very clean finish. So good game from Karis. The Nets win this one, 130 points, and it actually, the ability for this team to score when not having even James Harden and Kyrie, like Kevin Durant obviously dropping 40, but like across the board, the role players on this team are not bad. Tyler Johnson with 11, he's actually not that good, and so not really him. But Landry Shamet with 14, 3 for 7 from 3. Jeff Green brought 14 out for the bench. There was one, he was matched up against Edmund Sumner, who he just bodied a couple of times in the post, so that wasn't working in his favor. Joe Harris is a knockdown shooter. There's just some actual depth to this Nets team, which is just terrifying when you consider the fact that Kyrie and James Harden are also on this fucking team, while Kevin Durant can drop 40 and 10 assists like it's nothing. Like, this team is just too fucking stacked, man. So yeah, that's it. Don't be too mean if you don't like the Hawaiian shirt. I don't know. Like I said, I've seen other people wear it, and it looked good to me on them. Don't know if it looks good on me. We'll find out. I'll find out when I'm putting this footage together. I might hate it. I might delete this. I don't know. But that's it. Goodbye.